Hey everyone, my name is Dustin Collins. I work at Carbonite here in Boston, and today I'm going to be talking about one Python anti-pattern that I think is pretty important. How many people here use pypy.python.org to find their packages? Pretty much everybody. How many people have a package up on PyPy? Okay, a few. That's good. I'm going to be talking a little about this and an example of the anti-pattern. I've been watching the RSS feed for new PyPy packages for about a year now, so I see a bunch of stuff going through. And I think everybody has run into something like this before. You gotta find a package. What is this package? I get a one-sentence description of it, but who wrote it? Where is it hosted? How do I use it? How do I contribute to it? What is the license? Can I even use this? And this is about 75% of PyPy, I think. And so I just want to talk a little bit about how we can fix this. If you're putting libraries up, and I know a lot of people talk about, I've seen many threads on Reddit where people ask, how do I contribute to the open source community? And this is a great way to do it, to just go through PyPy and do some of the things I'm going to talk about today. Does anybody work for G Adventures here? Because I'm going to bash on that.
It's just an example.
Okay. So what are the things missing there? There's no README. There's no license. There's no classifiers to say this works on this version of Python. This is intended for developers. This only works on Windows. Things like this. There's no homepage to go to. Is it hosted on GitHub? Is it on SourceForge? Where is this library? You have to go search all of them to find the actual source. Link to repository. How do I contribute to this package? What do I have to do to set up my dev environment to actually help you out? And does this pass the tests? Do you have tests written for it? How much of your code is being tested? And so the previous example, all of that was missing. And so here's a good example of how we can do it better. This is Py3k warn. It basically looks at your Python files and figures out how to write Python 3 compatible code. And so you can see here, the README file is included in Python. I know how to install it. I know how to use it. I know some sample output of it. How do I test it? How do I contribute to it? And to-dos are great because you can just go on GitHub, which is conveniently linked to with the homepage. It's intended for developers. Can be used on the console. MIT license, which is pretty much good to go. And it works with 2.6, 2.7, and 3.3. And so, let's see. So how do we do this sort of thing? Use setup.py. In your packaging, you can do most of what you want to do here. PyPy is smart enough to parse the setup.py. You don't have to write things twice. You don't have to write a README and then put your README text into setup.py. You can do all of this. So really the only thing, it's kind of set it and forget it. The only thing you should have to update in your setup.py, you have a version number at the top. You bump it, put it out. And so this is an example of the setup.py for that library I just mentioned. It's doing something a little funny with the version because it's pulling out the init.py. But, this is it. It's short. You put everything in here, the description, the license, who did it, where can I host it, packages, console scripts. You just open the README straight from your project, and it goes in a long description. PyPy picks that up, and you just add this list of classifiers. And this is great because if you put your classifiers in, if you say, hey, this works on Python 3.2, 3.3, it changes. PyPy changes. You get the old boring Python logo. You put your classifiers in, new shiny 3 Python logo, which is kind of neat. And there are a couple other things going on in here in the Py3k warn. So we can say our library is compatible with Python 2.6, 2.7, 3.2, 3.3, but how do we really know that? And there's a great tool to do this, which is Talks. And Talks will basically create virtual environments. It'll install your requirements into them, it'll run your tests, it'll tear it back down, and it'll tell you if the test passed or not. And it's really easy to set up. You know, pip install Talks. This is the whole Talks file. This is saying 2.6, 2.7, how do I run the tests? And that's all you have to do. And then you know whether it's compatible with every time you run your code. It doesn't take that long either. It will cache your requirements files. They haven't changed. And okay. So we have this build passing here. Is anybody familiar with Travis CI? Okay, cool. Travis CI is great for open source projects. All of these, you don't have to, you want to build your project, you don't want to set up a Jenkins server, you don't have to do all these things to run your tests every time you commit your code. So Travis CI is a way to kind of abstract that away from you if you have an open source project. And so basically to set it up, you put this .travis.yml file in your project. You say what Pythons you want tested on, how to install it. I want to run some scripts. If any of these scripts fail, it will fail the build. After success, you run your coverage report. And here is Py3K1 running on Travis CI. 51 builds. These are the versions of Python. Everything's passing. It looks good. And if you have a GitHub account, I mostly use GitHub. So I think this will work with other source repositories as well. But basically, if you have a GitHub account, you just put your repo name in. You have that Travis.yaml file, and you're good to go. So it's kind of set it and forget it. And the last part is this coverage icon. And this is using coveralls.io, which is free for open source projects. They have tiered cost levels for however many private repos you want to test against. But basically, every time you commit your code, it sees how much test coverage you have on it. And so here's the same one for that library. See the test coverage is going up, which is good most of the time. Who committed on it. And so this is also pretty much set and forget. And so it's really nice to have these parts of your infrastructure just kind of put out there. They're already working. You just don't have to pretty much sign up for them and put them to your repo. And they give you these pretty little badges like this that you can put on PyPy, you can put on GitHub, and it just links their API, and they'll put build failing, coverage 14%. You're not doing so hot. And that is it.